Get into the very troubling and complex distinction between a multi-ethnic society or a multi-racial society and a multicultural society. And it's a distinction that would be made by people like Mahyar Tousi, by Tommy Robinson, and I think not by Steve Laws. And there's a squabble going on between Steve Laws and Tommy Robinson. Tommy Robinson is the person who was one of the founders of the English Defence League, and then he left it because he believed it was becoming racist. He was right. But Tommy Robinson claims not to be a racist. I think Hijazi, the 18-year-old boy, or he was much younger at the time, who took Tommy to court, who was attacked himself in school, and Tommy Robinson claimed that Hijazi was himself provocative and merited that attack. The judge didn't think so. The judge thought otherwise, and awarded damages of, I think, £100,000 or something. And Tommy Robinson was wrong. I think Tommy Robinson is partly wrong in the quarrel that he's got with Steve Law, but I think Steve Law is significantly more wrong. I don't see that distinction between a multiracial society and a multicultural society. I think both have their place, and I think in Britain we should be embracing both. But I do recognize there is a distinction between them. I do recognize that they are different things, and there is a tendency to blur the line. So something which is multicultural, we have a variety of different cultural behaviors. Let's take one manifestation of culture is language. So speaking different languages. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. What Tommy Robinson would suggest is that a multi-ethnic society or a multi-racial society that adopts a British culture is perfectly okay, but a multicultural society where there is a diversity of culture is not. And that's the distinction. I think it's a fallacious distinction. I think so. For example, there are multiple cultures in the UK already, even without considering immigrant populations who have made their home here. Like, for example, people from Asia who might, for instance, speak Punjabi at home. So might Welsh people. That is a demonstration of multiculturalism, and that is also a demonstration and a pride in our British heritage. And that, for example, is one of the reasons why I would question Nigel Farage, who was upset about hearing another language on the train. Well, there are other languages spoke indigenously in Britain that we should be proud of and that we should promote. Welsh is one of them. Welsh is one of those languages. And Steve Laws was criticizing a person called Amandeep Bogal. And Amandeep was in turn concerned about the strangely coloured and strangely shaped George Cross, which has appeared on the football kit, courtesy of Nike. I suppose there are parallels with the little tick which has appeared on Iceland hot cross buns. They're not hot cross buns if they've got a tick. I remember making hot cross buns years ago when I was a nanny, and I so much enjoyed it. The actual dough for the hot cross bun is delicious. And then you put on this sort of pastry cross. I suppose you would get the same flavour if you just put a blob of pastry or a pastry tick Why not? But it's not a hot cross bun. A hot cross bun is celebrating a part of our culture which has been appropriated from a religious background, but has become part of our national culture. So a hot cross bun, I presume, would not be appropriate in the synagogue. But it is part of our British culture, appropriated from the medieval Christian past. And many people now would have a hot cross bun without realizing that it has significance at Easter, which is coming up on us very fast, except that you can, of course, get hot cross buns practically all year long. And I love a hot cross bun. I think they're wonderful. Anyway, Amandeep was disturbed about the St. George Cross, and he was saying how he was English and proud of his heritage. Amandeep says, let me quote, "This is the cross of St. George. This is my flag. This is our flag for all who call this great nation home. This is the flag that unites us and inspires us to be proud of our green and pleasant land." How delightful there. A little bit of Jerusalem. And William Blake. Again, religion has in part defined our culture. Religion has helped to define our language, our week, Sunday. Well, that's not Christian culture, but it's the culture of the people who have come here over the years. We are a multi-ethnic society, and we always have been. From the Romans, who drove the Celtic people into Wales, up into Scotland, and then the Anglo-Saxons and the Danes and the French come here, the Huguenots, the various waves of immigration, the Irish, the Jews from Russia and Eastern Europe, the Windrush generation, all of these people coming to our country and embracing aspects of our culture, enriching our culture. But not all of them are picking up the same religious traditions of our culture. Our religious traditions are diverse. And I think that's probably where Tommy Robinson and I and Mahyar and I would probably part company quite dramatically. Steve Laws, I just think is an unprincipled bigot, isn't he? He would have it that anybody who is a slightly different colour, who has a slightly different racial profile, should be thrown out of the country. I mean, that is absurd. That is utterly absurd. At what point do you start defining who is actually British, or who is English, who is Scottish, who is Welsh, who is Irish? Is Shirley Bassey not Welsh? There's a point at which this is absurd, in the same way as it's absurd to start trying to define who is American by claiming who got there first. And Britain has this diversity built into it. I think the George Cross, let's have a look at the George Cross, because the George Cross on the Nike football shirt is not only a strange colour. I mean, it looks like some sort of design for a hematology department, but it's also the wrong shape. The George Cross comes in two forms. There's a square version, and then there's a rectangular version, but this is some sort of cinemascope version that bears no relation to reality. Look at this. And then we've got what Steve Law said about Amandeep. Steve Law said, you are literally Indian. It's not your flag. You will never be an Englishman. What a ridiculous thing to say. What a ridiculous thing to say, as Tommy Robinson pointed out, of so many people from other ethnic backgrounds who have given their lives, who have fought in our armies, who have played football. And Tommy Robinson points out in his rant, which was quite colourful, he used some rather striking words. He said that his mother is Irish. Does that mean that he's not English? Of course, do we suddenly start thinking that Oscar Wilde is not English? Oscar Wilde was born and brought up in Ireland. Tommy Robinson quite rightly says, I stand by that Sikh gentleman. And so does Mahyar Tousi, of course. And I absolutely agree with this. But Tommy would then go on a little bit more, and then it's a point in the rant that Mahyar Tousi doesn't investigate. He doesn't dwell on it. I would like to find out exactly what this is. But he says it's different with people. So people who come here from a Sikh background, from a Hindu background, from a Jewish background, all welcome. People from a Muslim background.
Is the argument that Ian Wright isn't English? Yeah, other footballers. Is that what the argument is? Is that where you think benefits? Is that the path you want to go down? Isn't my mum's Irish? Does that mean I'm not English? Or is it okay for me to say I'm English because I'm white? That's the argument, and the argument that he's having comes from that angle anyway. Because as I've said, he'd deport anyone of mixed race. I've seen him say it to a mother's face. I remember as he said it, I thought, you cheeky bastard. Yeah? You cheeky bastard. Anyway, that's my views. So, and I stand by them. And I stand by that Sikh gentleman who's embraced our country, embraced our flag. And people say, oh yeah, so you're okay if other non-whites take over the country. Sikh community increases approximately 1%. Black community, 1.2, 1.3%. Hindu community, similar. Muslim community, whole different demographical change to this nation. Yeah? Okay, whole different demographical age. Let's not hammer the other communities that have come here and embraced this country, yeah, and want to embrace it and be part of it. Let's not stick it on them at these times. Let's understand who is causing the problem for this nation, which ideology is going to be a danger to this nation, and let's not stick shit against the poor other people who have come here and embraced it and work hard. That's my point, yeah. And I had this with the English Defence League. I had wankers within that movement who joined it, who were, when I say wankers, they're basically just racists, and they were. And that's not me throwing it unfairly, yeah? They were, okay? They were racists. And I had a problem with them the whole way through the English Defence League. We kicked them out, we got rid of them. They didn't like the fact that Gurmit Singh said he was English. They didn't like the fact that Gurmit Singh was one of the leaders of the English Defence League. And as I said from day one with the English Defence League, this is where we stand. This is where I stand. And I stand there because many of the people I love aren't white. But in my eyes, and in their eyes, they're
the Muslim background, I think he would like to claim, is an aspect of multi-culturalism. It's not about an ethnic issue, it's about a cultural issue. I think he's wrong. I think he's wrong because Islam is both an ethnic identity and a cultural identity in much the same way that Judaism is. And Hinduism is. And it's very difficult to distinguish between the two. I think people who have embraced British values, who are defending British identity, English identity, Scottish identity, Welsh identity, and who have brought with them the proud benefits of another culture, we can learn from this and we can grow. Mahyar talks about the speed of growth and the speed of change. I think, again, that's a fallacious argument. It's rather like saying, to the Israeli Defense forces to Netanyahu. Oh, you've killed too many people now. One death is enough. You can't start judging something by speed or by quantity. Something is either right or it is wrong. The speed with which it takes place is an entirely different question. And I don't think this is about being, in Mahyar's language, an oversensitive snowflake. I think it's about looking at things in a logical and careful way. So, absolutely, there are issues with zealous religious bigots. Absolutely. And there are many of those. And they're spread across a range of religious backgrounds. But I don't think we should be in any way questioning the Englishness of Muslims, questioning the Englishness of Sikhs, or the Englishness of Jews or Hindus. It is absurd. And equally, I think it's wrong, therefore, to draw a distinction between being multi-ethnic and being multicultural. The two things, in practice, are intertwined. And, I'm delighted that Tommy Robinson has fought back to the prejudice of Steve Laws. Steve Laws is clearly a very silly man, and Reform UK is absolutely right to make sure that he is not part of their political unit. He's been thrown out. That's right. If this is his response, he demonstrates very clearly why he is not worthy of a place in the political spectrum of our country. Tommy Robinson is a different matter, because there are legal cases against Tommy, and because I think Tommy has, on occasion in the past, crossed the line. I also think that he's become the demon of the far right, and unreasonably so. He seems to me to be a reasonable and very nice man. On the other hand, I haven't been victimized. I haven't found myself in the same situation as Hijazi, the boy who Tommy Robinson singled out. And I also think Tommy Robinson's language about Islam is wrong. I don't think he's necessarily a bad man, but I think he's wrong. And on this subject, I think Mahyar is trying to steer a very careful route through this language. And I think he's being very, very guarded and trying to overlook the heart of the problem. Tommy Robinson is wrong. Steve Laws is more wrong. And we have to call it out. We have to call it out in the same way as we have to call out Farage's toleration of racism in UKIP. You don't have to be a racist yourself to tolerate racism. And racism comes in many, many forms. A racist joke is still racist. And racism is not about what you intend. It's about how your language and your behavior comes across to others.